Hey gang, I'm all suited up and ready to play and got nowhere to go because my foil isn't working. So today we're going to talk about some basic armory skills with the foil. Your basic circle, things that any foilist and their parent should know about taking care of your weapons and making sure they pass and are legal for competition. So get your foil, get your tiny little screwdrivers, and let's go check this out. Come on. To start with, let me explain the basic circuit of your foil. When you have your foil hooked in and you hit your point, you get an off target. If you hit it to the lame, of course we know we're going to complete a circuit that will give us a colored light. Now the basic circuit, starting with our connector, includes the wire through the middle of our blade as well as the blade itself. So if you're used to having, say, two wires, one wire is the equivalent of the blade, the other is the wire that's inside. When we press down the tip, it's like flipping on the on-off switch for the lights in our living room or something. And once you understand that, it makes more sense how these things work. To understand our foil, we need to take off our tip tape to get to the tip. When you get to the tip, you will see there are two very tiny screws about the size of the screws on your glasses. Now, one of the hints that I'd like to give you for working is take a roll of tape, such as tip tape, and set your belt right in there instead of having it roll all over the place while you're trying to work on it. This ends up giving you an extra set of hands. Now, the tip screws are very tiny. When I take my tip screws out, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the tip. I'm then going to take my screwdriver and unscrew the tip. One little secret, when you're using a screwdriver, you want your finger on the screw, you use your other fingers to turn it for a more efficient manner. That's why you have these little pieces on the screwdriver to help facilitate unscrewing the tip. This is a magnetized screwdriver, and this is exactly why you want it magnetized, because these screws are so tiny. We want to work on a white surface, preferably a cloth, so that when we drop our screw, we can see it. So now I'll finish taking it off, and notice I dropped it and it goes right onto the towel. This is exactly why we want a towel. And see how there's pressure on this tip? If I don't hold it, it's going to shoot out. So I'm going to take it off. Here's your tip. And I'm going to take my screwdriver and dig in and pull out the spring. You can see how the wire goes into the barrel. Inside, about here, is a little cup, and inside that cup will hold the spring, and then the spring will hold up your tip. When you depress it, you can see how the spring is depressing, you're going to complete that circuit. This circuit also includes the screws, as the screws are going to connect the blade itself. For competition, one of the things that gets tested to make sure it works is our weapons. And one of the ways they're going to test it is by putting a weight. Now, this is a foil épée weight. The épée weight is 750 grams. The foil weight is only 500. So this is an additional 250. We as foilists don't need it, but those of you who are épéists will. When the weight is tested, it simply goes onto the point. The weapon should be straight up, not wiggling, and should hold up the weight. Now, you might have noticed when I pushed it down, it popped right up. That's what a spring should do. But what if it's not passing weight? Oh no! That's when we have to stretch the spring. Now, when your weapon is not passing weight, your spring is the cause of it. So what's happening inside your barrel is it's pressing down, but the spring isn't pushing the tip back up enough. So you need to do something about your spring. One of the things to do is to take it and gently make it bigger. When we're making it bigger and giving it more resistance, we're talking maybe a millimeter bigger. If you do too much, it becomes too heavy. If you do it too light, the tip isn't going to be pressed back up. So we need to test this. And once you've stretched out that spring, we're going to put it back in the barrel. We're going to put one screw on, and we're going to test it to make sure that it works. If this is also continuously going off, we need to find out why. It could be the weapon, it could be the body cord. If we don't know, one of the ways to do is test it. Now, what I'm going to do is close out the circuit. By connecting the two lines, I've closed out the circuit. If the break is in front of the connector, then I know the problem is with the weapon versus the body cord. If when I test the two-prong end, I'm still getting an intermittent light, I may have to go to the three-prong end of my body cord. Now the three-prong end has two far and two close. The two farther points represent the foil. If I close them out here and I get the light to stop going off, I know that the problem with the circuit is beyond this connection. So if closing out the connection here stops the intermittent, but closing out here does not, the problem is the body cord. If I close out here and it stops the intermittent, but I plug in my weapon and it still goes off, the problem's the weapon. Don't assume it's the weapon or the body cord. It could be either. And if by closing off the body cord here still doesn't get rid of my intermittent, it's going to be the reel or the floor cord or maybe even the machine. This is how you test to find out where the problem is. And remember how I told you the blade was part of our circuit? Well, what happens if you hit your opponent and your barrel and your tip hit, you're going to negate your touch because the blade will ground out on your lame. This is why you have to have tip tape on your foil. Now the rule says you need to have 15 centimeters of tip tape. 15 centimeters is approximately 5 inches. So rip it off. I personally like using black gaffer's tape. Gaffer's tape is a cloth tape which is used for theater products. You can also use other cloth tapes. I do not recommend a plastic tape. Now, when I put this on, remember our two little screws? I'm going to put it right below my screw, and I'm going to line it up so it's nice and flat against one of the edges. And then just gently roll it around. So it makes a nice, neat taping job. I like using black tip tape because it makes it a little more difficult for your opponent to watch since they're typically watching your blade peripherally. And depending on the light, this isn't going to catch the light and reflect it like, say, white or red. But some argue, well, don't you want the referee to see your tip? Well, you do, and in most tournaments, you have enough lighting so the referee can see it, and black will go well against the bright background of the lighting. I think I've only refereed maybe 1 or 2 events where the lighting was so bad I had problems watching the blades, and it had nothing to do with the tip tape color. So my recommendation is a black, but feel free to use colors that represent your team or so on. Now, I've started right below the screws. Why? Because if I have to adjust my tip, all I have to do is take one piece of tape off. I don't have to do everything. So I'm going to take another piece of tape, less than an inch, and I want to line it up right along the edge of the barrel. Because again, I don't want any part of my barrel touching my opponent's lame because that can negate or ground my touch. And I'm going to wrap it around nice and cleanly. Now the other thing is I don't want too much tip tape because that could end up affecting the way the weight sits on my tip and hold the weight so as to give more problems for my tip to be able to push it back up. So it's important to have nice, neat, clean tip tape. It's important to replace your tip tape on a regular basis. It's also important to clean out your barrel, which you can do when you have it opened, like we had a moment ago. Take a Q-tip, use some acetone, and just go in there and clean off that tip. It's recommended that you probably do it once a season because you're going to get little dust particles and rubbings from the tip that'll get in there, and that might interfere with scoring as accurately. So it is recommended to clean your tips once per season. We know when we hit the ground or off target, we're going to get a white light. We also know that we hit on target, we're going to get the colored light. And this has to do with the different circuits. When we're testing, again, what we want to see happen is the weight goes down, the light goes off, and life is good. When we test, we see there's a problem. I have a white light when I hit Ted's LeMay. Well, what's the cause of that? Chances are his alligator isn't up. That means the alligator's working. Remember, that was that third prong. When he connects it to his LeMay, it works. If you're getting a white light hitting the LeMay, it's not the weapons problem. It has to do with the LeMay. The only other possibility is if the wires in a body cord have been twisted so they're not working properly. But if the body cord is wired properly and you're getting a white light, that's because there's a problem with the alligator on the LeMay. It's always fun to get a chance to beat up on T-Rex, he and his little tiny arms. But it always works better if I have my equipment functioning. So if you don't know how to do it, now you do. So keep on stabbing, keep on fencing safely, and we'll see you. If you like this video and you've gotten something out of it, please subscribe, please like, please share, and if you really like it, we'd love to have you as a patron of the Cyrano's page. So down below is a link to our Patreon page. Catch you later.